Hey everyone, this is Achyuta Bhava from Nightlight Astrology. It's Bhakti Wednesday, and I'm making this video after coming out of a weekly Quaker meeting that I like to attend in St. Paul, Minnesota on Wednesday nights. With the holiday this week, my normal recording schedule is thrown off, and I was actually thinking that I probably wouldn't do one tonight, but coming out of the Quaker meeting, there were a few reflections that I thought, might be worth sharing, and hopefully they add to your day and maybe stand in place this week of my normal Bhakti Wednesday content. I apologize if it's a little loud. I'm in my car right now. So for those of you who don't know, Quakers meet, and the worship service, if it can be called that, is just a gathering of worshipers in silence. It's like a form of contemplative or centering prayer, and I find it very relaxing and meditative. Of course, and the Quaker tradition is really rich historically. There's a history that the Quakers have in the United States of being part of the Underground Railroad, being first to include women as basically, well, everyone, but including women and anyone as capable of sharing a message. There's no clergy, or there should say there's no laity. Everyone is considered clergy. So it's really unique. People in the gathering of quiet will sometimes be led to speak or share, and absolutely anyone can do so. In fact, that was considered so radical during the early days of the Protestant Reformation, and the Quakers were first getting started, that they were killed because they were allowing women to speak. And in the United States, they have a history of rejecting the ownership of slavery in early America, helping with the Underground Railroad. It's just a really, really cool group, and for me, it's been a way of reconnecting with my Christian roots, but in a very meditative way. In fact, they invite people of all walks or faiths or orientations to attend the worship. Even they're even like, look, hey, atheists, if you want to attend, cool. If you get something out of the silence, that's good. So I just find them to be really open-minded, and rather than a preacher, anyone in the room might be called to share an insight coming from the spirit of regular quietness as a way of life. Anyway, that's a little bit about Quakers, but I wanted to share something that came from the worship service this evening, and it came after the fact. Funny, the gentleman is actually crossing the street right now. I won't take a video of him, but there's a 96-year-old man from England who was in the service tonight with his daughter, and everyone, after the service was done, an hour of silence was over, took a moment to share something and introduce themselves, and no pressure if you didn't want to or anything. But this gentleman, I don't know, just 96 years of well, not 96, but early on, I guess, as a young man, he started his journey with the silence, the contemplative space of the Quaker meetings. And he met his wife as a young boy and she was a Quaker, and so he started attending, and quietness became a part of his lifestyle, as he explained. And what moved me so much was, he said, as a young man, I had to go to church with my family, and he said it wasn't God that bothered me, it was the language. He said it felt like everyone in the church service was using the same language, the same words, the same jargon, and it was expected that you learn the vernacular and learn how to speak the vernacular because you ought to. And he said, when I went to a Quaker service and I listened to people speak, not because they were ordained to do so or the only one qualified to do so, but simply because the experience of prayer and quiet led them in their own wisdom to say something. And what struck him was that nobody ever used words in a way that made him feel uncomfortable. And he said it wasn't, again, it wasn't that I ever had a problem with God, or even the idea of any particular ideas that bothered me. It was just, I couldn't get over the fact that everyone was so programmed to speak and think with certain words, and that only certain people had the expertise to talk about the inner experience of a spiritual life. And then I went to the Quaker service and I heard people, it was quiet, and few people spoke, and if they did, I could tell they were speaking from their experience, and the sign that showed me that they were speaking from their experience was that the words felt real to me. Some of the words I recognized from the Christian church, but not as many of them, and they weren't speaking them in the way they ought to speak them. Some of the words were similar, but I could tell that they were coming from an experience that this person, without any seminary or clerical training, was just receiving from the spirit of being quiet and listening. And he said, and over the years, the only thing that's really kept me, going to Quaker services all the way till 96 is that every time someone speaks in a Quaker service, they use words that a lot of the times I've never heard before. I've never heard the same experiences that we all have or may recognize, but hearing someone new, someone different, someone's life yielding a thought or an idea or a reflection, I just can't get enough of it. And I was really moved by that. I was really, really moved by that because, whether it's the Christian faith or astrology, Hellenistic astrology, Bhakti yoga, as someone who, did an MFA in creative writing, an MA in creative writing, I think one of the reasons that I've been compelled to go around the world and visit different faith traditions and learn different philosophical ways of thinking, and different, from ayahuasca to yoga to Christianity to all these different things, is that I just like hearing people put it in a new way that I've never heard it before. That experience of connecting with the heart and soul of something divine. And one of the things I really love about, I guess any practice that I've really appreciated, there's usually some kind of contemplative space. And when I think, like, sometimes people are like, oh, I really like, the way you speak or teach or something, like, how did you learn to do that? And first of all, I don't know that I necessarily agree, or I'm not necessarily going to, it's hard to accept that. I don't really think that about myself. But if there's anything that's contributed to, any substance that I do have as a teacher, or like making YouTube videos, or as an astrologer or whatever, it comes straight out of practices where, I have to sit and listen and get quiet, whether it's listening to the sound of a mantra or listening in quiet with the Quakers. Whatever it is, it's like I can't know how to speak, and I can't know how to say something in a way that's new. That, and it's the newness that reaches our hearts. It's like our ears identify quickly. Oh, I've heard that before, and it's dead. And I'm the filter to the heart, and the heart wants something real. So if I'm going to let you in, then I have to hear, in the sound of your voice, the tone, the energy, the words, I have to hear something real. And I don't know how to speak something real unless I have some space of regular listening. Listening for that still, quiet voice. It's one of the things that Quakers sometimes say in the jargon. But just listening to the Godhead that's inside. And anyway, I was just so moved that this 96-year-old man summed up his life faith by saying, I just like it when people use new words. And the Quakers always use new words, and I think that's because they spend a lot of time listening. So just something that'll get me through the next few days, honest to God. Just hearing what he said was new to me. And so I hope it might be new to you, and that it might get you through the next few days, as I know that it'll be sitting with me what he said. And Yeah. So I'll leave you with one last thought, which is that um, if there's any trait that I think I try to develop and that I think as spiritual seekers it's helpful to develop, whether you're studying astrology or into yoga or whatever, it's this idea that we become like the honeybees, and we seek out the sweetness of the nectar. Whether that nectar is quiet or meditation or some kind of flow state or the wisdom of teachers or a thoughtful podcast you like or whatever it is, I don't know if spiritual life boils down to anything other than taking in sweet ideas, thoughts, and spaces in our life regularly to that somehow that's what gets into the heart, and that's what keeps us going. So I was just so moved to hear this gentleman speak and share a little bit of his story tonight. And sorry that I don't have my normal Bhakti Wednesday programming, but I hope that this will suffice and give you guys something good to think about. So that's what I've got for this evening, and we'll see you next week. Hare Krishna.